I need to greet all of you. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Asians Read, the stream for tabletop gaming enthusiasts who want to learn more about Asian cultures and make their games more inclusive. Couple of announcements. Tomorrow, we are going to be playing a hack of Beak Feather. I mean, barely a hack. That game is just so versatile. But it's like a hack of Beak, Feather, and Bone. It's like a map-making RPG that I'm calling Jade, Silk, and Steel. It's going to be set in our Dungeons and Asians world. We've got Steve, Agatha, Adam Ali, myself, and Kiena all writing about Chang'an, the capital of Xia. So we're doing that tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Come join us. That will also be on YouTube. Second thing, this book is out. This book, the Dungeons and Dragons 2021 Annual, is out as of yesterday. So if you're in the UK or you want to pay shipping from the UK, you can go to amazon.co.uk and you can order this book. And Dungeons and Asians is actually featured in it, which is super, super, super duper exciting. Honestly, can't believe it. But yeah, that's it for announcements. While I work on my technical stuff, Steve, do you want to take it away?
I got one announcement. I'll repeat it at the end of the stream as well.
Go for it.
But on top of this weekend, I was playing Beak, Feather, and Bone. That's the name of it, which I'm really excited for. It's a really cool, lightweight RPG. And also, we were talking about how culture and travel are they cannot be separated. Map making is also part of travel. So that's like very much about culture. On Sunday, I will be the GM for a custom game of Jiangshi, which we play actually on this stream as well. I will be the GM. I have written my own custom scenario, and I am happy to say that I'm excited for it because on top of the players playing a Chinese restaurant where they have to like do all their things and whatnot, I'm also going to magically teleport them to Karatur, and they will also be serving the residents of Oriental Adventures their food. And the Jiangshi, as part of like the overall game, are supposed to represent things like racism and other ways that people can oppress you. So the Jiangshi are very thinly veiled, very racist, whether they know it or not, designers of Dungeons and Dragons who are infuriated by anything that falls outside of what they understand what it is to be Asian. Very excited to see how that kind of goes.
I feel like I thought that was supposed to be a twist, and you just told everyone.
It is a twist, but also in the spirit of being very transparent with my group, I actually told them one of my content warnings for this one is Oriental Adventures. And all my players were like, actually, I would like to hear more about that because there's a chance I don't want to play this game. So we actually had to sit down and I said, this is actually the main beats of it. And this is how I expect you to kind of go through it. And if you don't want to interact with this kind of theme, I completely respect that. And like, I want to be upfront with you. And all of them were like, I appreciate the context. And then we're all in.
Cool. That sounds like a really meta kind of commentary on role-playing games, depiction of Asian cultures in general. Interesting.
That's pretty sweet.
I consulted with Sen, who's one of the designers, and he was like, so you're using this new game to deconstruct an old game to talk about racism in current games. I was like, well, when you put it that way, it makes me sound really smart. But yeah.
You should have them run into some Asian dwarves cooking, I don't know, bibimbap, and not like the Oriental dwarves as depicted in the original Oriental Adventures.
I should.
I have, for transparency. Also, Steve, what time is this going to be at?
It'll happen at 12:15 Pacific time, so that's about 3:15 Eastern time.
So when that's done, you can catch me at twitch.tv/doesitroll playing Rime of the Frost Maiden. Steve, you did it. Wait, did you already do it, or are you doing it next week?
I'm the week after you.
Oh yeah, Steve's the week after me.
Are you guys like swapping in and out or rotating players?
Are you saying that we're interchangeable? Because that's racist. No.
No, I would never suggest that.
They're having guests on every week.
Okay.
Steve and I actually came up with the same character idea independently, but since I'm going first, I get to play
Daniel gets dibs.
I am playing Jinwoo of the Sun Crow clan. I don't want to call it a kenku. It's just a raven who's a chef in 10 towns looking for ingredients, recipes, and friendship. Yeah, that's my character. But that's going to be at like 4, I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern for that one. So yeah, I'm gonna fix my tech issues, and then Steve, take it away. Anxieties. We should do a content warning.
Yeah. So for the next little bit, we're going to talk about some more disadvantages, and specifically, we're going to get into what's called the specific anxieties. For all of y'all who are following kind of offline or on your own kind of books, we're on page about 132, starting with addiction. And that's a really good place to kind of give us the content warnings here. So everyone who's kind of tuning in, we will be talking about addiction. We will be talking about mental health and disabilities. And that has been a theme for the last couple of episodes. You've been tuning in. These conversations tend to dig pretty deeply into like lived experiences, as well as the intersectionality of what it means to be Asian, and also experience these other types of oppression, as well as these other identities. This can get pretty difficult, and of course, if you are a viewer out there and you feel like you need to disengage with the content, and this actually goes for our cast members as well, if you feel like you need to disengage, of course, open door policy, pause the video, step away. Your health is much, much more important than this deconstruction. But that said, let's dive into it. So our first specific anxiety is addiction. And this is one I think that we unanimously decided that we want to talk about in some detail. So I will go ahead and read the flavor text as well as some of the rule text here. So addiction, flavor text. The smoke curled in pleasing patterns above my head. I drew another lungful from the pipe, feeling the acrid burn in my throat and chest. A searing warmth made my cheeks flush, and I exhaled. Chasing the dragon, they called it. Funny. It doesn't feel like I'm chasing anything. It feels like I'm standing still, and the universe is rushing all around me like a storm. But afterward, the dragon always catches up to me. It's mental, physical disadvantage. The effects. Choose an addictive substance or experience. Deprivation from the substance or experience for more than 3 days causes shakes, chills, distractions, and even more violent symptoms that become increasingly difficult to conceal. After performing a check to resist the substance or experience, such as fitness or meditation, you receive 3 strife. If this is the first time this has occurred, gain a void point. First time this occurred in the scene, gain a void point. And that's that. I know we had a lot of thoughts, but does anyone kind of feel ready to kind of share?
Yes, the most general one, I think I've said this before on others, is that this could be an opportunity for people to play through something, but it would take a lot of background and sensitivity in order to do it. And I don't know if communication and sensitivity is always at every table. So what could happen here is super harmful.
Notice that this trait is under anxieties, making it a mental thing as opposed to a physical addiction, which would be under disadvantages.
Is this labeled a mental and physical disadvantage?
Okay.
Yeah, they did explain a difference between what they mean by anxiety below. I noticed that they don't explain it really well until the end of the chapter when they say you can make up your own. And right now I don't remember what the difference is.
Are we on addiction?
Yeah,
we start with addiction.
Okay,
here.
cool. I went down to get some ice for myself.
I think it's like Emma said, this could be the opportunity to deepen a character and really explore something quite serious, potentially meaningful and potentially harmful. And it's tough here. Like I think it kind of boils down the way they boil addiction and plenty of these other conditions down to a few dice rolls. You get 3 strife if you fail your check, and you potentially get a 3 strife, I think, if you actually succeed on the check, and then you just gain a void point. I don't know. It's pretty simplistic. I feel like if you have a character that's actually dealing with something like addiction, then that's a big thing. Like if you want your addiction to be a prominent part of your character, or if you want it to be, you know, something in your backstory, that's going to require a lot of back and forth between you, the GM, and the other players at the table to, you know, talk about how is this going to manifest in my character? Am I just going to be making a dice roll when like you tempt me with something that I'm addicted to, or are we going to get to the ins and outs of my character's thought process and how they feel? Addiction is often presented quite poorly in a lot of popular media, and this offers the opportunity to present it very poorly and very kind of just like on a cursory level. Most of the heavy lifting to present it well would have to be done with, would have to be put on the shoulders of a good GM and like a very careful player also. So it's tough.
Yeah. So to kind of jump off that, of course, there's not enough guidelines here to like play this off correctly. But the fact of the matter is, I would say the majority of players who probably want to like engage with this content probably do know someone who may or may not, who may have had an addiction or battled the addiction in their past. And this is not giving you the correct way to kind of engage with that. And it kind of, it makes me feel very unhappy with it. I get this kind of like disgust feel, which is very emotional. And if I were to like backtrack it through some logic here, it's kind of like you've taken this idea of something that has connections with the society around them, how much support they have, what their circumstances are, and you've kind of boiled it down to like one paragraph. And if you have a loved one who has struggled with addiction, if you have struggled with addiction, to boil it down to that, this amount, it feels kind of gross. And yeah, I have a lot of emotions on this, and I'm gonna try to like hold myself back a little bit here. Otherwise, we'll like just hear me rant for an hour.
As like, I think as, you know, to say, so I have like an interesting group, and like all of them are pretty public about this on social media, so I don't think there's a problem with this. My regular gaming group, there's like 5 of us, and like 3 members of the group are recovering alcoholics. And we're playing Delta Green, which is a game where you get problems, right? But those problems are like purely narrative. They don't really have a mechanical bearing. And so we have these discussions. It's like, hey, is it okay to say that my character is drinking away their stress? And if not, we don't include it. But I think the thing about addiction here is that it's incredibly reductive. I think anybody who has suffered from addiction, or is anybody who has had somebody in their life who has suffered with an addiction, will know that the effects of one individual's addiction is far more nuanced than you get the shakes, chills, and distraction and violent physical symptoms. It has an effect on how you interact with people. It has an effect on their lives and how they interact with other people. It's not, for me, it's not that this is icky. It's that it's just like, it's written by somebody who clearly didn't do any research or doesn't understand addiction.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to see, especially in an Asian setting, something being coded as opium addiction in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's always the one where if you're going to talk about addiction in East Asia, I'm always going to check for signs of that particular substance because of the history, and talking about the larger ramifications for drugs and addiction, like that was something that reached far beyond individual levels. That was huge. So
yeah, how often do you see in media the white person coming back from war, recent memory says Vietnam War, that has like PTSD but also like helps to kind of curb their own pain with heroin or like other opioids? And it's kind of like, it's not necessarily because Asia was the source of that. There were other factors there. It's very, very complex. And, you know, we really do have to dissect society as a whole if we want to talk about addiction, because
and I think the art also implies that only the poor can get addictions.
Yeah. On the note of what you were talking about, Steve, my dad is a Vietnam War vet, and he hates all Vietnam War movies. He hates the depiction of the the guy that came back from Vietnam, like, and is either, you know, like John Rambo and like vengeful and unstable before becoming rehabilitated as like this hero and patriot in the later movies. And he hates the kind of idea of like, you know, like taking morphine to dull pain and whatnot for the exact reasons that you stated.
Yeah.
There's not a single Vietnam War movie that he likes.
Fair.
Which is fair. Yeah, which is fair. But
Yeah,
I
that's
find that
super fair.
I find, you know, he's often dissecting the geography of places and often talking about the way individuals are depicted. And, you know, he finds like Rambo like insulting as a character trope. He just finds that to be disgusting to watch. So
yeah. I don't have any more to talk about addiction. I don't have the energy to talk about addiction anymore.
Honestly, I think we should just move on. I think we said what needed to be said.
Yeah.
And it kind of blends into the next thing, which is battle trauma. So we already kind of started with that.
Also, are we? I will say, Jeremy, now that you've talked about your dad, do you want to skip battle trauma, or are you okay with us talking about this?
I'm okay with it.
Cool.
Emma, did you want to take us away with battle trauma here?
Sure. So with the flavor text, we have a poem by the looks of it, which is an interesting choice. So, the 1,000 cuts I have borne, and the 1,000 I have delivered, paint my dreams in red, broad brushstrokes to draw pictures I cannot put to paper. Do my ears ring from old age, or is it that steel's song and warrior's cry, gone so long ago, but never gone? And this is a mental, physical, and the effects apply. At the start of a duel, skirmish, or mass battle, your hands shake, your body tenses up, or your mind might even lock down. You can act normally, but your unsettled state is obvious to everyone around you, and others may try to exploit it. So after performing a check related to battle, such as martial arts melee, check to strike down a foe or a tactics, you receive, okay, I find it really hard to read through these because of all of the brackets and things going on, but strike down a foe or a tactics check to generate initiative. You receive 3 strafe. Your GM can choose not to inflict the strafe after you have taken a few, okay.
Yeah, it's a
Taken
typo.
few turns and thematically overcome your trauma. If this is the first time this has occurred, the scene gain 1 void point.
I think the first thing here is that it's like battle trauma only affects you when you're actually in conflict.
Right.
And like that's not the case.
That's not really how it works. I find it interesting that they chose to flavor text this with a poem.
Yeah.
Making it more like, I don't know, romantic, or there's no real situation being played out here. There's no speaker. But yeah, my overall note for this is, I think this is clearly about PTSD, and there's still way too much, I don't know, debate about whether such invisible traumas exist and what it means, particularly the intersection between like masculinity and invisible trauma. And again, this could be something that you might, as an individual with a trusted GM, might want to work through, but I think this is just room for a whole lot of bad things.
I think the one line about how the GM can choose not to inflict this strife after you have taken a few turns and thematically overcome your trauma. Thematically overcoming your trauma is a very complicated process. Overcoming trauma can often take a lifetime. If with the right sort of game, the right sort of GM, and the right sort of player can create something very meaningful with that interplay, with that consistency of, you know, working through trauma. But it really takes a right combination of individuals to do that. I think 9 times out of 10, just with these rules presented as how they are in the book, you're probably not going to get that from your standard game of L5R. I would like to see something like that, and you know, but I just don't. You know, as we said before, the whole anxieties, disadvantage, and advantage system as it exists in the game is a bit flawed and reductive.
Yeah, I think what they're going for is they're again, it's similar, same with addiction. It's an incredibly reductive view on PTSD and how it affects people who are continuously put into combat. But the idea here is that like they're trying. Have you all seen Wonder Woman? I feel like everybody has, but I always ask.
Yeah.
So there's the
Yes.
one character in Wonder Woman. He's the sniper and he has PTSD and he can't shoot the people. And then all of a sudden at the end he's like, I can do it now. That's essentially what they're doing here.
It's very like a popular media idea of overcoming trauma. I think I think you see this a lot. Like I can't do something, or I have a phobia, but then something happens and
And you're
boom,
like
you're
all
okay.
of a sudden you're cured. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way.
It does not work that way. And in fact, overcoming trauma is a process that usually takes years, and it is not just a constant kind of like I do this and this and suddenly I'm okay and I'm better. There are going to be ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and that's rarely, if ever,
It's like there's a
captured in
switch. It's just
media.
like turn off the PTSD when my friends need me, and then turn it back on. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
I can't help but see this in a game design perspective, like how Dungeons and Dragons is such a like power fantasy. Like you don't pick these kinds of like anxieties like in Dungeons and Dragons, right? But here in this game is very focused on this kind of thing. It's kind of just hard.
You-
it's hard
you-
not to.
I mean,
You
I feel
don't
like
pick
if
these
you-
things, but you also kind of do. Like you have flaws, you have bonds, ideals, personality traits. These are all things you could put into D&D. They're just not mechanized.
These are things that really need to be like your own personal story arc that a GM will actually craft for you with care. It's very hard to make mechanics for these things, and any kind of mechanizing these things is going to end up being reductive. And L5R has mechanized the whole spectrum of so many different things, and as a result, everything that we look at, we're probably going to be like, that is reductive. That could be improved upon. This is taking a very deep issue and just reducing it to a few sentences.
Mm-hmm.
So L5R has once again set up its own little, trap where we're like, well, why'd you do this? Once again, Daniel, you said before that this whole system could have been revamped to just like choose two distinctions that you want your character to either exemplify or, have to go through over the course of this campaign. And here are the mechanics for like strife and void, and discuss those distinctions with your GM. Here's a couple examples. They could have reduced this whole section to maybe 20 pages if they had done that.
Or
And
or
like-
less.
Or less, yeah.
And then I don't really know how players would interact with it, but I feel like that gives everyone the opportunity to, if it's something they have experience with or want to play through, then they can build a character with PTSD or any other anxiety. But listing it off in this manner opens it up for people who don't have that background care or like I don't know, the tools to do it with, to just pick it up as if it's just an easy or minor aspect of the character they've created.
I'm interested to see if this is the only time they try to portray PTSD, because if it is, then they're saying that you can only get PTSD from battle.
And that it only shows up in battle, like you said.
And that's so wrong.
You'll see other kind of maybe if you like, but this is the clearest example, but there's things like fear of death, which could like, there's also ferocity and whatnot.
Mhm.
But this to me is the clearest example of like the coding they're going for.
Does World of Darkness have a similar system? Because I haven't played too much World of Darkness, but I'm familiar that there's like, aren't there similar anxieties?
The old World of Darkness.
Old
I don't
World
know
of
if the
Darkness, yeah.
I don't know if the current or new or whatever iteration is right now.
I don't
But
know.
there was a problem. Of course, people would take all of these like negative traits to like stack up to getting bonuses, and then so
So you're
Without-
you're taking like disabilities and whatnot and min-maxing with them?
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Merits and flaws, apparently.
merits and flaws.
Merits and flaws. That's right. Thanks to the chat.
So now that we have the conversation about it, I do want to draw a connection between Jeremy, you said like min-maxing, Monty said like power fantasy, and you mentioned the word romance. And I feel like those three terms have all kind of come together in this one disadvantage here to make like a really ugly cocktail. Because a player can like take this text and they can do a lot of harm with it because of the reductionality of it. They've kind of like have this entire breadth to just take this idea and pull it into their own experiences. And if their experiences is not with this type of trauma, then it's going to come off as harmful. And that's really rough because it's setting the player up and the GM up to do harm, even if that's not their intent. And to me, that is really hard to see in the text. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
I'm ready to move on.
Let's
Yeah.
keep moving on. This is going to be a rough one.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll like tail end this with like let's talk more about fantasy food at the end.
At the same time, I do appreciate all of us coming together to like as a group of friends and like our own support network to dissect it. Because if I was the sole sensitivity reader for this, I would find it very difficult to actually go through without that kind of like group support. So this is maybe like an experience that is somewhat unique to our stream, and I'm happy for that despite the pain.
Together.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving.
The next one is Cynicism, and I actually don't particularly have much to say about it. I think it's not very compelling, but from a sensitivity standpoint, it's kind of like it is what it is.
Yeah. It's pretty general.
Mm-hmm. I'm on the next page, and I have like there's Dark Secret.
My only thing about Cynicism is that if you read the text, and we won't go through it here, it's not good for a good game. Cynicism is a disadvantage that can really off trail your game and actually piss off your players a lot. So this is the kind of thing where like you need to talk about like what cynicism means to your group and how you want to portray it. Because if you have a player who's always like your idea sucks, it's ridiculous, that's just not fun. So you gotta be careful with that one.
It's like, let's go over there. Like, well, I don't know. Like every time.
I think we should do this next thing. You're a fool. It's like, well, that's not fun.
Yeah.
It's
Fair.
fun every once in a while, but like, yeah. But
so
let's
like, Dark Secret.
Dark Secret, yeah.
Ooh,
Daniel,
Dark
I think
Secret.
you were taking us here. Do you want to?
I'll read it. Sorry, I'm managing chat. I'm sorry that you saw that, Megumi-chan. Kayoko said. Her voice is soft as spider silk. Spider silk. Soft? Okay. Sorry. Her hands stained scarlet with blood. A scream hung on Megumi's throat, refusing to emerge. She could only stare in wide-eyed horror as Kayako stepped closer. Power requires sacrifice, Megumi dear. The urchin has given her life for a higher purpose, and I have saved her from a lifetime of suffering. The power that I have gained will keep us all safe. Megumi tried to run, but her mind seemed disconnected from her body. Her pulse raced with the impulse to flee, but her legs would not obey. Kayako glided ever closer. I can't have you telling anyone, of course. I'm sure you understand.
A little corny.
A little corny.
More than a little.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Speaking of corny,
It's
I
just
do want
like
to pause
it's
here.
like L5R blood magic, basically, is what they're trying to portray. We need SAR, but
Yeah, I was about to say, this is usually where Simon starts saying things.
I don't think
I
we
tried
really.
to look it up on the wiki.
I think it's I think it's meant to be Mahotsugai blood magic. or
blood
something.
magic, okay.
The thing I wanted to pause here with was that from the text, this is one of the few examples where within the text, a character has said something to refer to someone's name and has used the honorific.
But then
And
they
that
stop
is, like-
using the honorific in the next piece of dialogue.
So like I don't actually know how literature is generally presented. Are honorifics included and to what end, like stylistically? And I don't know if any of us can answer that, but like I wanted to pose that out there.
I mean, technically I can, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
That is an answer in itself. And that worries me.
Yeah, like I think I've already commented on how the way they use honorifics in these little clips of flavor text always just seem odd to me. Here, Chan is really specific.
Yeah.
So like
Comes across as
there is-
condescending.
yeah, or there is a power or age difference here. But then I don't really know how this works with a dark secret. So it's like, got a dark secret, kill everyone who knows. Like,
I think it's
So-
meant to exemplify that Kyoko has been seen committing this evil magic by Megumi, and Kyoko is kind of basically like a evil femme fatale and is
Yeah.
speaking in a condescending way to Megumi, calling her Megumi-chan, and then
yeah.
dropping the honorific later is probably just something they did for space restrictions. But you can choose whether or not to use honorifics with someone in like actual Japanese. That can have a lot of
I don't
meaning.
think that
there.
would affect the order of the lines, though. I don't think it's a space restriction thing. I just think it's inconsistency.
Yeah, it could just be. It's probably just inconsistent. Like
it's
I've talked about how I dislike this. I dislike the whole like calling people some like whatever san or like sama or like kun chan. Like,
Well, because there are a certain kinds of relationships that are implied when you use those honorifics, and that sort of context isn't really included here.
And it really
even-
is just flavor.
It's flavor.
And they abandoned the honorific halfway through, because if you look at the third paragraph, power requires sacrifice. Megumi, dear.
yeah, that's what
It's like, wait, what happened there?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, exactly it. I don't know.
And Chad is also saying that like the honorifics in L5R have always been inconsistent,
Mhm.
and that is just, it's unsurprising yet still disappointing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the same thing as Steve. What was that thing about the sesame oil? Asian sesame oil. What was that thing in the
Oh.
Caricature?
And the Karator noodles.
So when you make
Caricature noodles.
yeah.
What is the ingredient? It's Asian sesame
it's
oil.
Asian sesame oil. So when you make the Carator noodles, you have to make sure you have Asian sesame
As
oil.
opposed to what kind of sesame oil?
So say yeah, if you pull up that American sesame oil, you could get anything. But when it's Asian,
You're gonna get that Caricature flavor.
yeah,
all
you're
y'all- I
getting
don't
those Karator noodles.
all y'all,
That's a
this,
shirt. It's just like a cup noodle, and it just says Caricature noodles on it or something.
Karator it up.
Ooh, turnip.
But
Mm.
turnip.
that's really good, but also is exhausting.
Yeah.
But I'd like to continue on. Daniel, you want to bring us through the dark secret
Yeah,
mechanics?
so it's interpersonal. You have a dark secret that, if exposed, could bring ruin upon your house and disgrace your ancestors and descendants alike. If the details of this secret become public, your glory value decreases dramatically, as if you had lost staked glory by 10 to 20. I'm assuming that's a lot. Depending on that
Yeah.
secret, your status value might also decrease considerably by 5 to 10, as if you had lost staked status. So when you perform a check to assert your will over yourself or others, such as command, such as a command check to order troops to fight to the bitter end, or a meditation check to find inner peace, you receive 3 strife. If this is the first time this has occurred in a scene, you gain 1 void point.
So my games of L5R have been funny because I play a Lion Clan character who's kind of going against type. So glory and all of my assorted status values have really meant nothing to me. They've been going down ever since I started playing as my character. And so with this, I think this really only would come into play if you had a group that really paid attention to the honor glory values, which is not something I ever really plan to do if I run a game of L5R. And also, when performing a check to assert your will over others, you have to make these.
You have a disadvantage to try to do, like, if you were a Lion Clan general, you have a disadvantage every single time you try to do your job.
It's a little unclear. Is it a check over others who know of your secret, or are you trying to keep your secret from
That's the
coming
thing. So, like,
out
you're
by
always
accident?
conflicted. It's like, charge,
it's
but I don't want to
unclear.
say I accidentally murdered someone.
Yeah,
Oops.
Oops.
it's
Sorry,
a
Magoo.
little unclear.
Yeah, I don't know. This
I feel
is
like it's both. I feel like the assert your will over others has to only make sense if it's your secret is exposed, but then the meditation inner peace one is personal, so it feels
Yep.
like it could be both. I don't
I
know.
probably would not use this.
I would never use
I
this.
just-
Also,
I just think it's poorly designed. Also,
it's bad piece of game design. But also, imagine being at a con and you're like, I picked Dark Secret, and then the GM just like fucks with you for a couple hours. No
Yeah.
thanks.
I think there's something to be said about having a secret that could cause harm to your friends. That is a very like tropey drama piece. Like that's
Yeah.
your typical soap opera, like bread and butter. Everyone has a secret, and like it's gonna like twist later on. this doesn't give you enough guidance, I think, to do this in a very fun, engaging way.
Like, I think having a dark secret is fine, but when you put these game mechanics on it, or these like hard-coded rules of how your glory decreases and all that stuff, then it becomes kind of silly and stupid. Every character has a dark secret. Like in Dungeons and Asians, our actual play, like Waleed, Amar's character, was established to have a dark secret. But like Amar's not getting penalties or anything. We're just kind of like working it into our current story, and it's making our story a lot more interesting. But you don't have to have these game mechanics built into it.
Someone pointed out in the chat that perhaps in older editions of the game, it was written, you must commit suicide if this is discovered in regards to your dark secret. Well, that's not in this edition, but wow, if that was in old editions, good God.
That was just the end to everything. Just like, well.
Everything just ends in seppuku? Yeah,
Your
great.
honor, you've been dishonored. Oh, God.
Speaking of Dungeons and Asians, I would say that the dark secrets of every single player character there show you the breadth, not the full spectrum, but the breadth of like what dark secrets can mean. Because Waleed has this kind of roguey, kind of like
rascally bandit who lost
rascally
all his
bandit.
friends.
The dark secret for Lan Ning is kind of like a societal, almost like duty bound dark secret, and Dong Fang has clearly a divine dark secret, and like this is like spreads a lot of the breadth of what it means to have like morality and like what things mean to certain people. And this text doesn't come close. It missed.
Again, this is like
if you have a dark secret, and is it meant to be a secret from your other players at the table? Because they will know that you have a dark secret if you're making this roll and reminding your GM that, I got to make my dark secret roll all the time. So they're going to know that you have a secret related to something.
Oh no, I don't want to actually let the wrong words pass out of my mouth. Let me just make a roll. No, I'm good. I order my man to charge. Like, this is so stupid.
Couldn't you just make it a secret? Like, does it have to be dark?
Because there could be
Could
secrets, Emma.
Could it just be embarrassing? Like, kind of funny? Or does it have to be, like, insidious in some way?
I've got the nine-tailed fox sealed inside of me.
I think they want it to be insidious.
Naruto. Yeah.
They're looking for, like, some kind of, like, extreme crime, disgust to be associated with your secret. Like, your secret, when it revealed, should, like,
everyone in
make
my clan.
it, like, real, kind of morally.
Even though it seems to take very little to, like, mess up your social standing in this world.
Yeah.
It's like if the details of the secret became public, like, that's on you. Like, as long as you don't say anything, this has no effect on you. Anyways, we should move on. Here's where I think the language is confusing, and I kind of just want to leave it at that. Delusions of grandeur is an anxiety.
Correct.
It's odd wording to say that, yes, you think you're destined for greatness, you're confident, right? Why is that an anxiety?
I think I'm remembering a little now. When anxieties are defined, it's about things that cause difficulties in your everyday life. So I guess it's not necessarily that you know about them or recognize them, but it complicates your interactions.
So then the word anxieties is kind of, they should have a different word.
I'm thinking to kind of the structure of 5th edition L5R as a whole, and how a lot of the game is built in you accumulating strife points that will cause you to unmask in gameplay. That is a major facet of 5th edition. And so I have a feeling that this whole, fluffy section on anxiety and the fact that a lot of the mechanics are the same are really just to set you up in situations where your samurai can potentially accumulate enough strife to unmask. And then boom, what happens if you unmask in front of your colleagues? Will you lose honor? Will you lose glory? It's a very kind of trite way of encouraging drama throughout the game. And the whole kind of concept of unmasking, like, you can argue for and against it within this edition of L5R. I don't know if it was in a lot of other editions in L5R in the same way that it is in this one, but that seems to me to be why they put something like Delusions of Grandeur here.
I would have just called it a quirk.
Yeah, you can call it a quirk here, but they're all designed to have you deal with strife, to have you,
It's forcing you to actually engage with the game mechanics.
To force you to have to work with the game mechanics.
Apparently, unmasking is new.
Unmasking is new. So yes, I've heard complaints that this edition of L5R, people have said it just turns into like, will they unmask? Will they not unmask? Let's put them in a social situation or a combat situation where they might unmask, and then what happens? So, yeah.
And that can be a fun game. It's just like you have to set it up properly.
Sounds like the Terrace House RPG I wrote.
I will say that the delusions of grandeur, on top of being the incorrect wording for it, the actual mechanic of it, of like you just don't want to have a labor-intensive job, a menial job, a low-class job. That speaks to me from a cultural level. One time when I went back to Vietnam to visit my family and whatnot, I had bulked up quite a bit. I had done a lot of working out, and I shook the hands of my uncles and my aunts, and they got really upset. And they went to my dad and started speaking Vietnamese, and like they were really upset. And I'm like, what the hell happened? I shook their hands and they're upset with me. Like, I've been here for less than an hour. And my dad just laughed. Turns out that they thought, because my hands were covered in calluses because of my working out, that I had lost my job and had become a farmer. And they were like really upset because they thought this had been like a secret. And they were like, are you okay? Do we need to send you money back? And the fact of the matter is, there's a cultural pressure to like have certain statuses and employment and money in order to like be considered successful. This delusions of grandeur, it actually says that if you have like if you do like labor, then like this can trigger this like delusion of grandeur. But I am not someone who identifies with illusions of grandeur, but the still kind of like that pressure to have a professional job, to make a lot of money, and to like lift your family out of what they perceive as poverty. Like that is a very cultural thing to me, and this is not hitting it. This is missing it.
I didn't even see that. Yeah, that's pretty labor void check to eke out a living, performing a check that requires facing your humble place in an uncaring universe. That's not hitting.
I
in
know
the
it's
right
weird.
spot. It seems like they're trying to pull like a Call of Cthulhu type idea, like the universe is uncaring and I am but a human. But like that doesn't really belong here.
Or like everyone should be dealing with that.
Yeah.
It's just
Believe it or not,
existential.
believe it or not,
Speaking of existential crises, fear of death.
Some people like being farmers. Like, believe it or not, like some people enjoy like working with their hands and like doing this as a job.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they have like this like delusion. It doesn't mean they have this opposite delusion. It means that they just know what they like. It's like let them live their life.
Yeah, but it's also like it does. It's saying that a certain path in life is better than another. You know what?
Honorable?
It's more honorable.
Oh,
I know this is.
yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm feeding you.
I mean,
feeding you
no,
here.
but I think like there's. Do I want to talk about this on air? Yeah, you know what, I will. So, it was my birthday on Wednesday, and I went to my parents. My partner and I went to my parents' house, and we ate dinner. And my parents found this old time capsule I made when I was in like grade 5 or something. And they were like, you should open it and everything. And I was like, no, I'm going to open this when I get home. And like, I opened it when I got home, and I was really disappointed in what grade 5 Daniel put in there. And can you guess what I put in there?
Grade 5?
Yeah.
Pokemon cards?
Did you put like stuff that would allude that you would be a doctor or an engineer?
Oh, so
like
close.
did you put like a stethoscope in there?
No, I put my math quizzes in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you put your math quizzes.
Yeah,
in
so
there.
the whole thing was full of like questionnaires that my teacher in grade 5 made up, and like math quizzes, and like my hopes for the future. And I was looking at all the different things, and there are points when I'll be like, there's one of the questions was like, do you want a fancy car? And I wrote, I don't care about fancy cars. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Way to go, Daniel. And then there was things like, what do you want? What do you want most out of the future? And I wrote, I want to be better at math. And I know the reasons why I wrote that. And it wasn't because I wanted to go into a field that requires mathematics. It's because at that point in my life, my parents didn't understand that I was neurodivergent, and that, math was just something that didn't come easy to me. And so there was this pressure that I put on myself to want to be good at math, so much so that I put it in a time capsule to open a couple decades later. And so I looked at that and I'm like, man, like we really have, like culturally, we put so much pressure Like our parents put so much pressure on us to be certain things. And they do it for like, the good reasons. They don't want us, like you said, Steve, to pull yourself out of perceived poverty. They don't want you to have to worry. But it's these pressures that cause us to worry even more. Worry about how much we're making. Worry about the legacy that we're going to have. Like, I don't know if any of you have been told, like, oh, are you going to have kids? And be like, I don't want kids. They'll be like, then who's going to take care of you? I hate that. Like,
I've been told not to. I've been told not to have kids because if I don't have kids, then it'll save me from the grief of when the children turn out to be a disappointment. Because my brother and I have turned out to be. Yeah.
Okay, that's next level.
Wow.
Yeah,
right,
so.
but here, this is where these like deeply cultural things, are not really in the game.
No, they aren't.
Right? Like my parents would be like, you have to have kids so they could take care of you when you're older. So I have to have kids and like take care of them and have this like huge monetary investment just so I have a caretaker when I'm older. What if they hate me? They're not going to take care of me anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think mechanizing these fears and anxieties just doesn't make sense the way they do it here.
I wanted to mention that on what Steve was talking about how people some people just like being farmers. There's a video game called Muramasa, the Demon Blade. I think it's on like PS3 maybe, or it was on Wii definitely, and there's like a PS Vita version. But anyway, it was like this really awesome side-scrolling Japanese game made by a company called Vanillaware. Every screenshot looks like a painting, but the protagonist, there was like a ninja and like a samurai or something like that. But then in the DLC, one of the DLC quests, you just play as this farmer whose like wife has died, and he goes along with the ghost of his dead wife to talk with like the local magistrate and plead for better, like less taxes for like his farming buddies and stuff like that. And you're going through these side-scrolling levels with like this farmer, and he's got like, a little spade, and he's like attacking demons and ghosts with it. And his wife helps him. Like I think the double jump is like his wife's ghost appears and on top of him, like pulls him a little bit higher. That's cute.
So fucking amazing. I love that.
Cute. Yeah.
Oh man.
It's just this little. It's like a little self-contained story, just like his little farming adventure. It's not related to like the main game or anything like that.
I think it's still powerful though. I really, really do like that.
Yeah.
I was gonna share some thoughts on like my family's pressures of having children and whatnot, but I'm actually ready just to move on here to fear of death.
I'll say one other thing. Like everybody loves Animal Crossing, and that's a game about living a simple life.
I was born and raised in a farming community, so
Yeah.
Most of the people that I knew growing up are totally cool with doing what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's keep moving. We got fear of death.
Jeremy, you want to take us away on this one?
Yeah, fear of death. There are few crimes worse in the mind of the Rokugani than cowardice, which is seen as a violation of no fewer than the 3 tenets of the Code of Bushido, Yu, Meo, and Chugi. To help them teach the lessons of cowardice, Rokugan storytellers have many fables at their disposal. Tales of courageous heroes brought low by cowardly allies, histories in which the fall of an entire noble house hinges upon the failure of courage, and more. This is a mental, physical anxiety, and the effects are you cannot voluntarily choose to die or sacrifice your life, including committing seppuku when honor demands it. If there's a chance you could live, you must always pursue it. After performing a check to risk your life or accept your morality, such as a meditation earth check to find inner tranquility before battle, or a tactics earth check to hold a position against long odds, you receive 3 strife. If this is the first time this has occurred in the scene, you gain a void point.
Yeah, that just plays on this idea that like all samurai are ready to kill themselves.
Yeah, I don't like the whole. I mean, seppuku as a concept is there's a lot going on there, and I don't like how this game falls into like commit seppuku if you die, because it's a very talk about reductive ideas around both samurai and around Japanese culture in general.
Mm-hmm.
And like really not fun. Like you put that in a game, and that's always like an ongoing thing lingering over your actions. It's like, come on, man.
I have this running list in my head of things I don't want in my game if I ever go and play L5R. And it's like I'd have to sit down and be like, okay, here are my lines and veils, and just lay out pages just because this game forces you into, or can force you into doing so much of this stuff. Let's move on. We have ferocity.
Or did Steve have something to say?
Or Steve, were you gonna talk about fear of death, or Monty?
I'll say that the fact that the fear of death is a disadvantage rather than the neutral state of being very clearly
plays on perceived stereotypes of Japanese people.
Yeah, it is a perceived stereotype of Japanese people. Like there is a fear about Japanese people doing what it takes and like sacrificing their life to like get to a goal is incredibly harmful. Does harm to real Japanese people today, and is framed here as a disadvantage, and thus exacerbates a lot of the harm that a lot of people experience, real people experience. So it is disappointing to see it here framed in such a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the record, seppuku or harikiri was not that common in Japanese history. Not as common as people would like to think.
But Emma, the movies.
Yeah, right.
It's also one of those things that's been co-opted by Japanese nationalism in many ways. The idea that we are so noble that we will commit seppuku before we fall to, to foreigners, or we bow. Like it has
it's a major theme from World War II. And there's actually, I haven't read it yet, and I've been meaning to, but Shigeru Mizuki in his one comic, Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, I think, and I'm hoping he actually addresses when this happened to him when he was in World War II, and his unit in, I think it was Okinawa, I don't know. Something went wrong, and essentially the higher-ups commanded that all of the survivors had to kill themselves. And he said, "Are you serious? That's not happening." And the way that he thought through that and went about his life afterward is something that's come up in interviews and his comics. So don't quote me on that, but I do think that's something he deals with in Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, and I've been really looking to get a copy of that. But yeah, these are themes that have been dealt with in more depth in other places.
Ugh.
Yep.
So I'm also reading the chat.
Moving on, we get to something that I think is kind of interesting, which is impatience.
My character has that. I took that as a thing.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read through all the text here, but the idea that your character is impatient, doesn't like waiting, struggles with like being still, can be pretty interesting. And the actual mechanics of here, I don't particularly love it, but I like the idea that, if your character's put in a position where they must wait and they must be patient, take the 3 strife.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about, I have a personal tension around the mechanicizing of this type of stuff, where being impatient does allude to like maybe some mental disability or some other like mental neurodivergence. And like, I understand that. I have a struggle with mechanicizing it. This is an example where like I just don't know enough, so I'll take it as it is.
The way it played out in my games is that once again, playing a lion who's not good at being a lion, she should be able to wait and tactically find the right maneuvers and come up with a great plan to defeat her enemies without really rushing into battle. But her nature, or at least what comes easiest to her, is not to do that. So that's when I bring out this impatience thing, and it usually turns into some pretty good role-playing moments where my character just has difficulty going along with an elaborate plan, not because just because it's not her natural state of being, and it tends to Leroy Jenkins into things.
I like that character.
Yeah. Yeah, on a whole, being an impatient character is like an interesting kind of thing to kind of work with, because you totally have opportunities to be like, I'm impatient, I want to do something, but I trust my friends to like hold me back, to like give me the extra check there. Great storytelling. Very old, tale as old as time.
Oh my god, did you read Intolerance, the next one?
So I feel like I assume we'll be going over that a lot.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So I feel like Intolerance is the one that we're going to spend the bulk of our time with.
I'm just going to scroll ahead to see how many more we have to go. My god. Okay.
I only had one thing to say about impatience is that I think this could play through very naturally because it's a character trait of like, I don't know, it's not necessarily situational. It can be all the time without it being a big problem. So like,
I mean, it's not even just a character trait; it's also a trait that players might have too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, let's move. Let's
let's go.
next thing. Let's talk more rock.
I always joke that my girlfriend loves playing characters that jump into things. Like she hates all this planning stuff. I just want to get to the action. And then, but she and I keep trading. Like suddenly I'll get really impatient, and then she's like, "Okay, hold on, let's pull back." So
yeah, my girlfriend's like that too. She likes to take her time and weigh all of her options, and I'm like, this seems fine. Let's go.
Yeah.
But that's me.
I've learned from a business point of view, if you just say like, "Oh, I'm looking to fail faster to gather data," people generally just like tend to like be okay with that. So like, yeah, start doing that. That's Steve's like life hack for today.
I know. I mean, impatience is one that I would probably have on my character.
Yeah,
it's one that I would feel comfortable with. Let's talk about intolerance. I'll read this one.
Okay.
You know what's funny? I read it and it was just like intolerance, water. You're intolerant to water? That's what was in my head, and I was like, "That's awful. That is definitely."
It's the
Doesn't seem
dwarves
like a very-
when their water goes flat.
Right? Yeah. What is this flat water?
I'm intolerant towards it.
Intolerance
Yell
to
it.
water. Do you want me to yell it?
Don't yell.
Don't yell it.
Don't
Don't
yell
yell it.
Savages. Matsu Agatoki threw his helmet across his tent in frustration. Our clan is expected to sully itself by marrying one of our finest lords to one of those unicorn gaijin. How are we expected to bear such an insult? Matsu Seijiro knew better than to interrupt his brother at a time like this, and yet we do as we are commanded. The emperor wants this match. Does he indeed? Agatoki whirled around to face Seijiro. Then I wonder if he seeks to weaken us through infection.
Oh God.
Oof. Can't believe I read that. Interpersonal. Oh, Steve. Steve.
Spicy.
A particular hate festers within you for a group of people or even supernatural beings, and it overwhelms your better judgment when you're faced with members or representatives of this group. Choose one group of people or supernatural beings to be your hated enemies. When you are in the presence of these beings, and even when they are mentioned, your enmity is evident to all who observe you. After performing a check to interact with a member of the chosen group, such as a commerce, water check to a bargain with someone from a family that once wronged your own, or a composition water check to translate from the language of a group foreigners you dislike due to a battle you fought against their people, you receive 3 strife, and the usual void rule.
This is like, wow. This is
like
some in the chat was like, if you want to play racist, here's your mechanics. This is more,
it's literally like
more on
this
the
is,
nose.
oh, this is my excuse to be racist.
Yeah.
I'm intolerant.
This is
I'm
more
not
on the
even gonna
nose
mute
than
my
like
mic. Correct.
the
Don't worry.
3.5 Pathfinder rules, where it's like dwarves get an extra attack bonus against goblins.
Yeah.
But that's just an extra attack bonus. Here is like, you actually hate these people. Here's how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make like I get that there are like rivals and political rivals, but in this case it's not really a politics thing. They're like, these unicorn gaijin are savages because they are not from Rokugan anymore. Sorry, lore police, don't at me. But like, whose idea was it to let this actually stay in this book?
Especially when we already have a category of like racism and intolerance.
It's already built into the lore, whether we want it or not, and now you have to actually potentially take it on.
Yeah.
I don't. What kind of person would want to take this one?
Folks in the chat.
Do you
are
want?
saying-
Do you want an answer?
No,
Like,
I
feel
mean,
like
like I
you don't
know
want an
that's.
answer.
I
Yeah.
think we know, but
Yeah.
I
I want
wanted
to explore my hatred for other people, but I want to do it in front of my friends, so I'll pick intolerance.
So let's talk about word choice here, and that's what I want to get through. Intolerant in English specifically means like you cannot be tolerant, like you refuse it, you are not capable of it. That is not, I think, what the designers wanted here. What they wanted was someone to have an internalized racism or prejudice or bigotry. They wanted that. And bigotry and prejudice is something you can work through. It implies the fact that you have preconceived notions that are incorrect. That is bigotry and prejudice. Intolerance means the existence of such a thing is not like amicable to you. You cannot abide by its existence.
I think the implication is that your hate is immutable. I think that's one of the things that they kind of are implying here. Now, I don't know if you can lose these anxieties or you can like switch them out.
You can.
But there's no resolution here to say like, hey, if you do this, maybe you lose your intolerance.
It would be GM's discretion. That is like in the rules, GM's discretion of whether or not you can overcome your intolerance. But it's setting you up to be like, what are you gonna like de-level your intolerance to just good old vanilla bigotry? Like what are you trying to say here? And it's difficult, and it's difficult for me to engage with this kind of like game.
Yeah, I know. That's just big ol' X.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
If games are supposed to be fun, what's effing fun about this?
What's fun about this? I mean, like the same people who are like, just enjoy it. Stop trying to find flaws. This game literally has a mechanic where your character is racist.
This isn't necessarily related, but the first thing I thought when this character's name was Agetoki is bean curd time, because Age is like the fried bean curd, and Toki is usually attached to things to mean time. So
Agetoki, yeah.
Bean curd time. But the rest of it's shit, so let's not look at
So
it.
let's talk about irrepressible flirtation, because there's red sidebar text here.
Yeah.
Let's start with the red sidebar text, and it says flirting with PCs. Topics of romance or sexuality can sometimes make people uncomfortable. If your character is an irrepressible flirt, you should still make sure your fellow players are comfortable before role-playing any flirtation or romantic overtures between your character and theirs. This also applies if you're the GM. Hey, that's good. That's fantastic. Way to go.
So really why don't we have a bar like that up with Intolerance for
yeah, if you don't
probably because like there's a lot of RPG horror stories floating around about like, hey, this guy was like hitting on me even though he said he was just hitting on my character. Those are quite common, so probably they're just like, oh, we need the red text here, but they didn't think about like actually like there's a lot of racism in these games as well.
Hey, this guy was racist to me. No. I mean, like I mean, Emma, you've never really played a TTRPG. For the rest of us, like, how many of you have encountered like somebody who's playing an intolerant character or being intolerant at the table? Like, most people have, and the convention should be if you decide that you really must have intolerance in your game, it's got to come with a red sidebar text in L5R. The fact that it doesn't have one it's a crime.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's
so this one is
the flirtation
rough.
one. So
irresistible. So I was gonna read the flavor text here.
Do you want to read it? Okay, go for it.
Because it's fun, and like I've already told you all that I'm a Scorpion. So apparently I'm just an irresistible flirt.
Irrepressible.
Irrepressible.
Yeah, it's not irresistible. You're irrepressible flirt.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Thank you. Irrepressible flirtation. So I snuck through the estate to her ladyship's apartment and waited for her servants to leave before reciting the poem I devised in her honor. You can imagine my embarrassment when it was not Lady Fujiko's voice that answered me from behind the curtains. The patrons of the inn hung on my every word. One of them rushed over to put a fresh bowl of wine in my hand. What did you do? Well, I said, taking a long sip of my wine, I introduced myself to the lady who was there. There's an interpersonal disadvantage, anxiety. You find it difficult to pass up the chance to flirt with people you find attractive. And when someone you find attractive flirts with you, you cannot help but return the advances with your own flirtation. Your interest is obvious to all onlookers. After performing a check to interact with or ignore someone you are interested in without exceeding propriety, such as a courtesan, courtesy, you receive 3 strife. If this is the first time this has occurred in the scene, gain that void point. So, all y'all, you can totally just like, you can flirt with NPCs and stuff as long as everyone has consent, and that can be like a really fun thing. I would say in the majority of my D&D games, it's 50% D&D, 50% dating sim. It's just like, y'all, you can work to smooch people, and like that's totally cool with me, and I love it, and everyone's on board with it, and it's like a lot of fun.
Do you want to know a really good example of that? Dungeons into Asians episode 4. Mods will, if the mod can link that. But yeah, that's a really good example of like playing D&D, not rolling dice, and flirting in a consensual way. That isn't this.
So
Makes me
I
think
wanted,
of like a. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna get some real deep here. So if you have a,
Oh no, I was just saying this makes me imagine like a Johnny Bravo type, like L5R samurai.
Oh god.
absolutely, and that could be a lot of fun if you want to be just like Samurai Chad. Like
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that, and like that can be a lot of fun. But you have to recognize that the idea of Asian men stealing away women is entrenched in yellow peril. And because of that yellow peril, there has been that dichotomy of sexuality for Asians, both men and women, where men can be seen as both predatory and feminized. They are so predatory, they're going to steal our women, but also feminized, and that the white man can beat them, whatever that means. And then you have these Asian women who are both dragon lady and docile at the same time. And you can see how that dichotomy makes individual people live up to standards that they can never meet. And that ends up causing real, actual harm to real Asian people. And this just leans into one aspect of that.
So I'm trying not to try to think of how I want to approach this. Okay, so there is a this really brings up this idea of have any of you ever heard of like, oh, I wasn't attracted to Asian people until you.
Like a yellow fever thing?
Like a yellow fever thing, or the thing that like, I don't know, this makes me think about that. There's so much here about like, I can imagine somebody at a con playing a character who's like this irrepressible flirt, but the GM being like, nobody likes you. But in a way that kind of plays on the stereotype that like, people don't like Asian men because they're seen as super effeminate. There's so much that could go wrong here.
Statistically, mask presenting Asians are less likely to be swiped the positive way, right?
Yep.
On dating apps. Femme presenting Asians are actually part of the highest.
Yeah. If you folks want to know more about this, and I will say this is a bit of a flex because I think we should be flexing. Long time ago, I did an interview for my old podcast with an actor that everyone knows now named Simu Liu. And we talked about masculinity and depictions of Asian men in pop culture. I'm going to put the link to that in the description. You can find it on other podcasting platforms too, but that's just the iTunes one. But listen to that one. It's a good long-form discussion about representations of Asian men in pop culture. But anyways, let's move on. Because I'm curious to see what they do with materialism.
Actually, I want to pause. Monty, Jeremy, Emma, do you have anything else to say about this? Because we just talked upon like sexuality and Asianness, and blowing past that is like, that can be. There's a lot here.
As a half Asian woman, I can say there's a lot of weird stuff that gets said to you, and not with the intention of harming me, which is somehow that somehow makes it worse, that they just think it's totally okay to say ridiculous shit to me.
There's a lot of, when you get into like half Asian mixed race people, there's this a lot of people will just go ahead and say, both Asians and non-Asian, be like, oh, like half Asians are so beautiful, you get like the best of both worlds, and it's like,
What?
it's like, I've heard that so many times, just stated as like a fact from both Asian people and non-Asian people, and it's like, there's a lot going on in that statement that you really should not be quantifying people on those metrics like that, and you should not be saying that in front of me or anyone else.
Yeah. And for me, I wish this wasn't part of it, but if there is ever like flirting or anything like that in real life from a stranger, I always got to wonder, like, are you being like a creep? Like, is this because you identify me as Asian and you have concepts about Asian women that you are bringing to this conversation? And I wish that wasn't a thing, but it is. I don't really have anything specifically to say about flirting in this game, other than perhaps for women or female identifying at the table, that it might be harder to say when it's getting uncomfortable or they don't want it. But this, like I said, I have no experience with the game side of it. Just real life and all the weird shit that happens.
All the weird shit that happens, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have muted myself.
Oh, that's fine. This is a beer cracking kind of.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
stream.
Shall we move on? Unless Monty, you have anything you want to say about this? I respect that.
I have plenty to say, but I don't think I want to. This is not my therapy session. So.
Can I want to comment actually on that, because Monty, I want to tell you that, like, from the messages on Twitter and like other messages we have in the Discord and whatnot, your ability to like, and your desire to like not share too much and like be very cognizant of like what you say and whatnot actually resonates with a lot of our fans. And a lot of people like really understand kind of where you're coming from and respect the fact that you have taken on this kind of role in our streams. So I too have a big respect for your ability to say, I have things I want to say, but now is not the time. That's you don't have the impatience disadvantage.
Yeah.
Gross. I already want to take it back.
Steve, why?
Can we move on, please?
Yeah.
My foot's so far into my mouth.
You're the one who. Okay, let's go to jealous. Do we want to cover jealousy?
The flavor text is really gross, but
Yes.
the actual like explanation of it is just like, you're jealous and you do silly things.
I think my character. Yeah, I think my character has this too. I've never read the flavor text though.
Someone want to take us to the flavor text here?
I'll do it. The story is told of Shiba Shikitora, a Phoenix Clan courtier in Otosan Uchi during the reign of Hante. Doesn't matter. Who was so incensed with her rival, a court poet named Kakita Sanuki. What clans are these, by the way? These names. I'm trying to.
Kakita. I believe,
Shiba
is
is Phoenix. Kakita is Crane. Hante is. That's the Emperor.
It's the Emperor.
And then Otosan Uchi. Uchi is. I don't know.
That's the capital.
It won't
Is
matter.
that the capital? Oh, that's a location.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
that's
Of course. That makes sense. That she would try to outdo her in all things. If Sanuki presented a poem, Shikitora would present one the following night in an effort to be the most praiseworthy. If Sanuki wore a beautiful kimono, the one worn by Shikitora must be 10 times as lovely. Sanuki's heart was broken due to an ill-fated love, and she threw herself from the roof of the imperial palace.
I gotta stop with this shit.
What the fuck? Everyone was saddened by this and spoke admirably of the late poet who had died for love. Shiba Shikitora threw herself from the roof twice as high on the next day. End of
God.
sentence. What?
Actually, this is really problematic because a common method of suicide in Japan is
Yeah.
jumping from high buildings. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's really bad.
Which is also the portrayal of women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Who wrote this? And then the rest of it is like, yeah, you want to try to one up your rival. It's like, oh, Gary, like that's fine.
Smell you later.
Smell you later, Gramps.
But like, yeah, the flavor text is bad. That was
It's
real
gross.
bad. I don't know. Does anybody have anything else to say? Or do we just move on?
I think it's pretty clearly gross and
Yeah.
yeah.
You could have literally said something like, "Oh, yeah, somebody was cutting through mats," and then the other person was like, "I'll cut through 2 mats," and it would have said the exact same thing.
You didn't have to go to like jumping off of buildings.
Yeah, you didn't have to go
This-
to suicide.
Or
This
like,
could-
I can eat 20 dumplings. Oh yeah, I can
Oh,
eat 50.
There's
And
so
then
much
he
that
died.
you could have, and they haven't done this, but Dragon Clan at Shaolin temples, like outdoing your peers through like feats of strength. It's a
Yeah.
real thing. Like, oh, you're able to do 100 push-ups. I'll do 101. Like that's like flavorful, and like no one died at the end of that.
Then you find out somebody cheated on their push-ups.
I didn't want to say it, but clearly someone cheated on their push-ups.
I know this is a thing, Steve, for you.
That's a line for me, cheating on push-up contests.
But look, Steve, I know that you can do so many push-ups. You can do all of the push-ups, and I believe in you.
Thank you. I
And
really
it doesn't matter how many push-ups you can do. I still think you're strong.
I
Steve.
remember when I didn't know Steve, but I was following him on Twitter. I was like, this guy keeps doing push-ups. Like, he's doing so many push-ups. Be at the top of my feed, more push-ups than I'm like, jeez.
I had to put an end to it because I was doing bad form push-ups and it wasn't doing any other workouts. So what was actually happening was my back, my spine was
Yeah.
actually taking a lot of damage from it. And I decided just like it's not worth it.
And Steve was getting too many followers, so there's a lot
I
of
was not-
push-ups.
I was not getting that many followers from it.
Okay, everybody follow Steve. You know what? In fact, while we're at it, while we're almost at the end, everyone should follow Steve, Emma, Monty, Jeremy, and Sar, who's not here. In fact,
And
well,
Daniel.
I have enough followers. I don't need any more.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't want any more. It's too
Okay,
much.
fine.
Too much crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, follow them, hire them. They're incredible people. Anyways, look.
Cats on my shirt.
Yeah, I have cats. Actually, that's a great shirt. That's a great shirt.
that's a great shirt. Yeah,
I'm wearing this This is not my Critical Role shirt. This is just a Beholder shirt.
Oh, I'm wearing a Jill Valentine and a zombie
Oh,
dope!
that's sick.
from Marvel vs. Combat too. We always talk about Biohazard.
Yo,
Elvira
I
Mars,
love the aesthetic of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. The early
Love
ones,
that
not the
aesthetic.
new
Love
ones.
that. No, the old ones. Old ones. Yeah.
Particularly the way that they showed Spider-Man in those.
Fantastic.
I loved that
yeah.
Spider-Man.
Those old games were hand drawn, weren't they?
Yeah, hand drawn pixel art. Yeah.
Yeah, you can absolutely tell. You can tell a game that's hand drawn by looking at like Marvel v Capcom, Guilty Gear.
Mhm.
It's truly wonderful.
I have very fond memories of going to Palladium and playing Marvel vs. Capcom.
Oh my god, Palladium.
I have fond memories of playing Marvel vs. Capcom in Japan when I was studying near Nagoya. And I would just go to the arcade and put quarters or put yen in and just play alone,
Yeah.
and then I'd sit on the initial D machine and try to figure out exactly how to like maneuver all the Japanese menus and stuff like that. It was good memories, good times.
I once got kicked out of a fighting game tournament for being too loud.
Ooh,
This
I
was
was
the Smash
distracted.
tournament.
It was the Smash tournament.
the Smash tournament, yeah.
I distracted the players and they asked me to leave.
Oh,
But I was like,
Get off the ledge! Get off the ledge!
well, I was
yeah.
also trash talking. I was like, I've decided this is my dark horse and I'm gonna cheer for them. So whenever the opponent like made a mistake, I just like gave them like boo,
Oh,
and they were not happy. They asked me to leave.
And it was a Smash tournament, so everybody's gathering around a TV, and you're
Yeah, exactly.
standing there.
Yeah.
So it's even worse, if anything.
It was technically on a big screen, but like yeah, everyone knew exactly who I was.
Oh, Steve.
I was also in cosplay at the time, so they knew exactly who I was.
And were you
Dark
the only one
secret.
in cosplay
Were you doing
this time,
push-ups
too?
at the time too?
I was in Muay Thai Lee Sin at the time.
Oh,
so I
the
was
push-up one. The push-up one.
It was actually a separate time, but also I was shirtless with my Muay Thai gear on
Mm-mm.
and just like being super loud and like
Wrong game. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on from this trauma.
Yeah, dark secret, dishonor.
That's
Yeah,
my dark
Steve,
secret.
you lose all your
Um,
glory.
Lose all my glory. Next one is materialism. I actually don't have too much to say about this one, though. I kind of liked how in materialism of like the flavor text of, oh, I'm not gonna read it, but oh, giving up materialistic stuff is like a path towards happiness to reduce your suffering. I see exactly what you're coding here. I like it. It sucks that you put it in the section with disadvantages, but it helps to kind of like build that dichotomy and whatnot. I wish there was a opposite to materialism in the advantages, because clearly they're trying to code that materialistic wants leads to suffering. Therefore, you would expect a vow of some kind of poverty or some kind of vow of
Does it
have you?
need to be a vow of poverty or just somebody who lives a minimalistic life?
Or just learning how to let go, which can,
Yeah.
which can be a very like Buddhist and Taoist idea. I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't have a good English, word to represent that, so I've used vow of poverty, which is pretty reductionist.
I mean, saying it's a vow is also loaded,
Yes.
because it implies that only like a certain member of society may do that.
Yeah, but giving up your materialistic wants, not giving up materialistic wants as a disadvantage implies there should be an advantage. We didn't see it. That kind of sucks.
No,
I expected that.
Again, this is a scenario where you could do both. Where if we were to redo this section, it would just be create your own advantage or create your own disadvantage, and here's how to do it. That's it. Meekness. Oh, you're extremely shy and you struggle to stand up for yourself.
All right, congratulations, you guys.
Okay.
Uh,
You're shy.
I feel like
We've talked about
shyness and Asianness and
Yeah.
how that. I don't.
but
think we need to go into
how it looks different for like men and women as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, look, we have bluntness and painful honesty. Oh, except this time you are tormented. This is different. You are tormented by internal conflict when you lie or allow a lie to pass. You cannot make claims you know to be false, although you can say technically truthful things that imply untruths if politeness or circumstances demand it. I feel like this is just a weird one to have from a world-building perspective. If you have everybody who is so dogmatic and honor-bound,
cannot tell a lie.
I guess.
This could lead to interesting role-playing conversations where your character has to like say things in a strange roundabout manner.
Totally.
And say things that are technically true to avoid lying. And if everyone else in your party knows that you have that quirk, then that could potentially be fun.
Yeah.
But this is something that, once again, could have been done in a different way, where it's like, okay, this is a quirk you want to take. This is a distinction.
It could have also been like an advantage in that, like, hey, you're virtuous and you tell the truth.
You're virtuous, yeah.
Like, yeah, why is telling the truth bad? There's paranoia. That one can be a cool one. The whole like idea of like nightingale floors and creaky floors to prevent assassins from getting to your chambers. Can be interesting. Let's see.
Although it's I don't know, you cannot relax unless you have confirmed vital information such as your current safety for yourself. I mean, paranoia is often related to anxiety, and like as a very anxious person who often cannot, who has in the past had trouble relaxing unless I confirm various things that can reassure me. And I've had to deal with that. Like this, I don't know. This is one of those things where it's like,
with the right group, it can be interesting.
With the right group, it can be interesting. With the wrong group, it's just going to trigger me, honestly.
Yeah,
I would say
that's valid.
I would say, given the world of Rokugan, paranoia is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those scorpions.
And like, yeah, supernatural stuff. And I think one of them that we get to, is superstition, where it's just like, is it superstition or are you just aware of the world and Rokugan's wild? So this is all very reasonable response.
Yeah, it's like if you're paranoid, but you're also, I mean, you can make paranoia interesting. And again, like Jeremy, your reasons for not liking this at all, perfectly valid. For me, it's like I think the only time I would use paranoia is if I was like, again, Crab Clan going over the wall, and we want to make sure that the shadow stuff doesn't get to us. And my character would be super diligent to make sure that the perimeter is secure and everything.
I think something like that I'd be okay with too.
That would be the extent to it.
I wouldn't mind playing in a crab campaign with you guys anyways, but I mean, like, I think we'd be a different L5R group than many other L5R groups out there.
Crabane.
I feel like that's gonna happen one day. We're gonna actually just play as the Crab Clan, and then Steve's gonna be a scorpion.
I got my uses.
We'll all be just humanoid crabs. Like, it's gonna be, we're all just gonna be crabs, and Steve is the scorpion masquerading as a crab.
Yeah.
That's dope. I love that.
Ooh.
It works.
It works, yeah. Perfectionism.
I like this. I feel like this really taps into, like, I don't consider myself a perfectionist. I have to imagine that, after talking to some people, this like kind of resonates a lot with the idea that you make something and it's never good enough. So you're willing to just like give it up and start over again. And it's frustrating and it's painful. It's clearly a disadvantage.
I feel attacked here.
I do feel attacked too.
I feel attacked.
Yeah. Like, as someone who has struggled with OCD, and who deleted my save in Zelda Ocarina of Time multiple times when I was replaying it so that I could get the perfect game and it wasn't perfect enough, like, and who has thrown away things that I've written and just deleted it so that I can't get it back again because it's just not good enough. It's tough to see this, but at the same time, I do understand why you like it, Steve. Like, I do think I don't know. It's weird. I feel like they capture some of the agony of having to actually live with this in the text here. At the same time, I don't know if I want to engage with it in a game.
Yeah, I don't. For me, it's like, this is the reason why I don't play Warhammer and I just paint minis, because like I've had this Plague Marine by my desk with this light launcher and grenade for like a week. I painstakingly paint every single detail, but it's because I'm just like, it's stressful for me to think that I have to rush to do something like this. So I would never take perfectionism because it feels too real.
At a very high level, and I don't necessarily want to get into it right now, but it shows kind of like the the striations of like privilege and whatnot. Because I never have this like perfectionist want. I screw up all the time, and like I'm totally fine with it. And I just move on past it. Yeah, I feel shitty about it, but like I never have this like urge to like go back or not share or whatnot. And that's a type of like privilege. And even within marginalized groups, we can talk about like the striations of that and how it affects various people and how the intersection of that affects various people.
Oh yeah, my experience is totally different because growing up I was like constantly being compared to my brother or other people. So it's like the perfectionism is like, that's a huge trigger for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Phobia. That's interesting.
I don't actually have much to say about this.
Yeah,
like it's a very like surface level. This is what a phobia is. We've defined it. Do what you want with it.
Soft-heartedness.
Although I would say they do describe it as something mundane.
Yeah, why something mundane?
Not all phobias
afraid
are
of
mundane.
everything. Yeah.
You should be afraid of everything.
Just should be choose something.
Choose something to be afraid of.
You did not need the word mundane there.
I'm afraid of the taint.
See, then that's not mundane.
Yeah. But imagine being a crab clan and having phobia and you were afraid of like
crabs,
gore or crabs.
Crabs.
I'm afraid of exoskeletons.
Oh God. But yeah.
Yeah, and then
soft-heartedness.
Soft-heartedness is like you spare people.
This is the Goku character, basically. Like, I'm gonna give you a senzu bean, and your health is gonna go back because I don't want to kill you. That's the vibe I get from reading the text.
It just feels weird calling it an anxiety. Soft-heartedness is an anxiety. Then there's superstition.
But one more thing about soft-heartedness.
Yeah, go for it.
That I don't like, and I know it's because of the wider world of Rokugan, but I don't like that any form of kindness or mercy is automatically going to cause you problems later on.
Yeah. Yeah, that implies that like everyone, it is seen as socially good to be ready to take life.
And if that's the overall vibe of the game, then no one's ever going to do these things, and that's highly unrealistic.
It's true.
We talked about this in Oriel's Adventures, where like Asians are depicted as savage and cruel especially. So here we've kind of alluded to the fact that it's actually quite abnormal to be not cruel, and that is very telling of kind of the stories we want to tell here.
Yeah, just imagine having one player in the group or the GM, and they put you in a position where you have to kill someone. The GM is just like, do it. And
if you say no, it's like, well, I'll get you
Well,
later.
well, you can't. It's be like, no.
You get three strife.
You get three
It's like,
strife.
Right.
I will get you later.
Right.
Yeah.
Life is strife.
Could you imagine like your GM is like, you get three strife and like it's on the next scene you have to unmask yourself because you didn't want to murder a prisoner? Like it's like
That type of stuff happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And that's-
sure
it's-
that happens in 05.
it's not written in the text, but now that we've gone through the text as more like a whole, you can see the scenarios they're setting up for.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, samurai, torture this person, said the GM who's puppeteering like some kind of shogun or whatnot. And if you choose not to do it, either because you don't want to do it or your character doesn't want to do it, but regardless, the results are the same. You get three stripe. So next scene, you're very likely to have to unmask yourself. And for what? Because you didn't want to like do this horribly gory thing that just like you were comfortable with.
Yeah. And it takes you out of the game as well. There have been studies in this about what is it? Associating and embodying yourself within an avatar or a character in video games. And they say the one thing that will completely break immersion is when you are forced to do something that goes against what you as an individual like believe in or would actually do. Even if though it's a character, you still like, it's kind of ruined.
It gets
Why
very...
you-
So go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just gonna say that's why like whenever there's like a main choice to make in like a AAA video game, you can always go and find some message board thread being like, which one did you guys choose? Like, did I choose the right one?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to do this. What like how do I like manage to go back and like not do the thing that had bad consequences? That's in like every
Yeah.
game.
Guilty.
Yeah.
This happened recently in a tabletop RPG, and I was Daniel. I was talking to you about this. I was like helping someone playtest a scenario of theirs in a dungeon, and the way it was kind of played out was that you had to like go through a cemetery or whatnot and bow to a false idol. You had to like bow to them, and regardless of what my character would do, Steve was like, "I don't want to bow to false idols. That's like kind of gross. Kind of like I don't like that." And actually, it caused our characters to actually take tons of penalties, and like we ended up dying at the end of the adventure. And I was like, huh, now that you explain it to me, yeah, my character probably should have bowed. It like made a ton of sense at the time. But Steve was like, you don't just bow to any fucking statue. That's ridiculous. And that is like, I'm not even that religious. And just like, it was so ingrained in my core that I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah, I like
So-
the example of kind of in the opposite. The example of you, Steve, is just like, I'm describing these beautiful birds, and you're like, how do I fight these things?
Yeah. And
How do I
that's
fight
like,
these things? I'm like, Steve, I'm just trying to paint a picture.
it's absolutely the same kind of thing. It's like there's things that happen subconsciously in me based on like my years and years and years of playing tabletop RPGs and like the tropes that we rely on. And this trope of being cruel, permeates through a lot of layers, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah, that's why I find it fascinating when games provide you with a non-lethal way of completing the game, like the Splinter Cell games, or Deus Ex, Human Revolution. You could do the entire game and only really have to kill the bosses in order to get through it. But games condition us to think like, okay, the game or the GM is putting something in front of me. This has to be combat.
Yep.
I think I've said before, one of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild is that you can dress up as a monster and run around with them.
That's true. You
can
can get
be
the
friends.
little mask.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Breath of the Wild has some fucking good shit going for it.
I love it so
Good.
It
much.
does. Except, yeah, I don't want to hate it.
Anyways.
I'm
There's
excited
some other-
I'm excited for the Hyrule Warriors game. That's
Okay,
coming out.
interesting.
Mostly
I have
'cause it's a story based one, so it's a prequel story. I want to know what happens before Breath of the Wild.
I really like Breath of the Wild. I put like 300 hours, almost 300 hours into it. It's a great game. It does a lot right. Its portrayal of the various peoples of Hyrule is quite impressive in many ways. Story-wise,
Story's kind of meh. I also
Yeah,
want to. I
story's
also
kinda
need a
meh,
recipe book. Why is there no recipe book?
there is.
There
I think
is.
it's a zine. It's a zine, though. I think. It's no official.
What?
Yeah, there's a zine. Yeah, it's definitely. I can find it for
In
you.
game?
Oh, not in game.
Yeah, that's what I
No,
mean. In
sorry.
game. Like I want to track
Oh.
my recipes in game instead of having to remember all of this stuff.
Ah, well, okay.
Also, I don't like how the weapon degradation works in that game.
Yeah.
I think
it's
from a
something else.
design perspective, it discourages you from using cool weapons because you're constantly afraid of losing them.
Fair.
What they should have done is they should have put a price tag on it. It's like, you like this cool weapon? Pay me $2. We'll repair it.
No, they could have just given you
They
a
do
way to
that for-
repair.
They do that for some of the major ones.
Like, how does the Master Sword break like that? You have to wait 10 minutes for it to regenerate in my inventory. Sorry.
Well,
Good
don't
marketing.
just go swinging the Master Sword around me.
Well, I got the Master Sword. I got 13 hearts. I got the Master Sword. Come on.
Just
Also, like
Cool it.
like post, the post game really bothers me in that. Why don't I get
Fair.
that bow of light? Why don't I get that bow?
Yep.
You show it to me in the final boss fight, and then
Yep.
after I win, I just go back to my old save.
Yep. Fair. But that's not what the stream
No,
is
that's
about.
not what this is. This is not Daniel rants about Breath of the Wild.
I love these tangents. It speaks to the intersectionality of being a fucking nerd.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are we covering skills?
We probably won't.
I don't
we
think
probably
so. I
won't be
think
able
we're just
to.
going to go to the GM chapter next.
So
can we-
superstition and then GMs. Yeah.
Can we briefly talk about the two pieces of artwork in the skills section?
Yeah.
There's two pieces of artwork that have stuck with me. There's one on 142 and 147.
Okay. Oh, do we want to cover superstition quickly?
Oh, the superstition? Okay.
That's
the
let's
last-
cover that one.
that's the
yeah,
last
okay.
thing
No, never
tonight.
mind that. Yeah.
It goes superstition and then
And then
like
we'll hit the
some,
art.
like,
We'll hit the art.
there's some GM stuff about like how to make your own advantages and disadvantages, which we haven't really covered.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
But I mean, we've come up with our own system, which is way better.
Yes, I think we can probably cover that in like 2 or 3 minutes without backtracking too much. But yes,
Yeah.
go on. Superstition.
Superstition. I'll just read it. A great deal of folk wisdom revolves around death. Peasants will avoid the number 4 because the oh my god, this bothers me so much because the pronunciation is close to one of the words that means death. Chopsticks should never be stuck upright in rice, as this mimics the placement of a ceremonial bowl upon the altar at a funeral. And one should never ever write a person's name in red ink, as the names on grave markers always are painted in red. Observances of Empire by Moto Kojiro.
So words matter.
Before I say anything, Emma, are these also common superstitions in Japanese culture?
Two of them, sort of.
Okay, sort of.
But
Because these
the
are all very.
chopsticks is just etiquette at this point. It's not like, oh God, you're bringing on like death or whatever.
In
Like
China,
that might have been a.
Are they confusing like Chinese?
Yeah, they're
superstitions?
confusing
Yeah.
Chinese
Yeah.
superstitions.
Because in China, that's the death thing is for chopsticks.
But yeah, so
I don't know if they're confusing. I think they're just stealing.
Yeah.
I think it's like chopsticks and the 4 and death are in Japan, but like not something that dictates why or how people do things.
Mhm.
So like part of the reason why the 4, because like 4 in Japanese is young. That's only one of the readings though. The other is adopted from China and it's she. So that's the whole
Ugh,
shin,
yeah.
she, death thing. And the chopsticks, like I said, that's I think just standard etiquette now. You don't stab things into things and leave them sticking there. But like, I don't know about the red
I
paint.
feel like they really conflate like strong Chinese superstitions, like very well-known Chinese superstitions,
Yeah,
with Japanese ones.
Yeah.
Anyways, that bothers me. I also shared a link in the chat. Wong Fu Productions, pretty well-known Asian YouTubers, just put out a short based on Asian superstitions and if they were horror movies. It's actually really funny. So check that out.
Is there fan death in there?
Yeah, there is. Fan
Can
death
I get a
is
fan death?
Fan death
Yes!
is it. It's like fan death, going to bed with wet hair.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
It's so funny. Watch it. It's
So
amazing.
so that's where I want to like talk about language. Like language really matters, and we are English speakers here. Like the word superstition, the word culture, the word tradition, these all mean very specific things. We are in such a place where we can like be very specific about what you mean. When it comes to not stabbing your chopsticks in a bowl of rice, that's tradition. That's like part of your culture. And most people in an East Asian culture realize that you're not calling on the spirits of death to kill people if you do that. No one's going to die if you do that. But what we understand is that we like it's part of our culture. We don't do it because we don't do it because that's not who we are. And that's powerful, but
There's also
powerful in a different way.
respect to those around you who believe that.
Absolutely. And it's just like it's part of your identity. And here we've kind of packaged that idea of stabbing your chopsticks into your rice to like mean that. We've conflated it to mean, oh, actually, you know, it's this superstition, and a superstition is more of like something someone truly believes will bring them harm. And yes, it might be true for some people, but you've conflated the two ideas of like some people just do it because it's part of their culture, part of their identity.
But also like the superstitions that they portray in the flavor text clash with how it actually works in game. It's like when you face when faced with signs of the supernatural, you become visibly agitated and you attempt to leave the scene, appease the being or phenomenon in question, or acquire supernatural protection of some kind. They don't talk about that in like the flavor text. It's just like these folk superstitions.
So sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, yeah, superstition is one thing. What they're describing in terms of reaction to the supernatural in the world where the supernatural is real and interacting. Yeah. This is, again, like I said, that just seems like a reasonable response to be like, something supernatural is happening. Let me do something about that.
Yeah. Yep. Or it's like, oh no, scary monster. I'm gonna run.
It's not the same thing as a superstition, which is deeply social and cultural.
In this game, you're not superstitious. You're just a little stitious.
Okay.
There's also a weird context that the character that is making this quote is Moto Kijoro, and that's a unicorn. So
he's talking about.
That's why it's comments like on the Empire. Yeah.
It's framed as superstitions, observances, unreasonable things.
But it's observances of the Empire, of which the unicorn are a part of.
I think this is meant to be one of those like Marco Polo observes China for the first time and writes down his observations sort of things.
Right.
Anyways, let's it's 9:00. I'm actually very emotionally drained. Okay. Let's go to that art.
I just wanted to it starts on the next page. There's just some nice art of like Asian people doing fun things. Like here's a guy flying a kite that I like it. Yeah. Keep on going. So this one, page 142.
142.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah would tell us which character this is.
Yeah. So page 142, I think she's a crane, and I guess she's doing calligraphy. And I liked it until I noticed that like it appears that the calligraphy has been an image that has been pasted on. It's just Japanese, and it's not like in calligraphy at all. It's like text.
Yeah, it's like Wingdings.
Yeah, it's like Wingdings.
Yeah, Wingdings.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Doji Shizue, according to the chat.
And the last... Oh, sorry, Steve. Do you want to say something?
Okay, the kite thing actually I think was really, really powerful because it is the example of a player working with their GM about a passion. Mm-hmm. It is the context of I want my character to be very passionate about kites.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I feel kind of seen because kite flying is like a big hobby. Like flying kites, you can fly a lot of kites.
And
like,
kite fighting
really, really
too.
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like this is really, really cool. And like, yes, you can like it's giving you an example in the text of how you might, as someone who is the cultural expert of your own culture, can now bring it into the game.
Okay, I have a really good example of this. So in quarantine, my family started playing D&D. Then we kind of abandoned D&D for Mahjong, which I'm totally okay with because I love Mahjong. But we were playing D&D. We were playing the Frozen Sick adventure from the Wildmount campaign setting, the Critical Role one. Mm-hmm. And my mom, not knowing how like healing works in D&D, was like, oh, there's this curse and it's turning people to ice and it's making them freeze. You know what I'll do? I'll make kanji for everyone.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, okay, this works. So the campaign revolved had my mom who has goji berries and just makes kanji for everybody, and just is my mom and just travels around making kanji for sick people.
I love
But
it.
she chose to make that a part of her character, and as a GM, I have to react and allow her to engage with that, right? If we were playing L5R, I'd be like, nah. Or if we were playing,
Soft-heartedness.
yeah, soft-heartedness. Or even if we were playing D&D,
Yeah.
you'd be like, no, that's not a cure. That's not cure wounds.
Doesn't work unless you apply the kanji directly to their taint.
Oh God.
Yes, one per stream.
Oh God.
The last artwork that I kind of struck me was on page 147. It's a dude folding origami, but I kind of like the way, I don't know, I like the concentration on his face.
He looks like somebody that I know who's not Asian. That's all I'm focusing on right now.
The way the hairline recedes, the way their beard grows in. This is not your typical, if I can say, like Fu Manchu Asian.
Okay, apparently
Yeah.
it's not a named character, but it's a card called Sharpen the Mind, which is actually kind of
Mind,
cool. You're
right,
engaging in, you're
Yeah.
practicing origami to.
Yeah, I just like
Look
I
in your
like
brain,
the
I kinda like
fact that, you know, there's kind of a contrast between the swords on the wall and the fact that he's not focused on that. He's focused on doing something with his hands. He's focused on crafting, and I just found this picture to be evocative for that particular reason.
He's made a lion and a fox.
And a lotus.
It looks like he's working on a crane.
He looks Asian
yeah.
to me, but I mean that's just me.
He also looks to me as Asian. If this man came to me, he's like identifies as Asian, I'd be like dope as
Yeah,
hell.
cool. Yeah, he looks like this guy I know who's not Asian, but the more I look like it, he looks like one of my partner's cousins who's half Asian. I like the origami though.
Yeah. And so
Like-
I just like this, you know, just Asian characters in L5 are just doing things, like, you know, not fighting,
Yeah.
not, you know, necessarily. If you go on page 150, there's a bunch of scorpions eating at a banquet. Like, I just like, you know, this kind of slice of life. They're just doing things, existing, and I think that's nice.
I liked your description. Asians doing fun things.
Asians doing fun things.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like this art on the scorpions, and I think it's a Crane Clan member.
Yeah,
It's Crane Clans, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Crane
clans.
Clan and Scorpion Clan just like eating and chilling together. I kind of like that.
It reminds you of like the tents. This is like this calm before the storm, potentially, or it might be just like calm everywhere, but just like people eat together all the time. Like it's part of every culture, but it's like part of Asian culture as well. And eating together and like, I can't tell how they're eating together. It looks like they're at a long table or so, not like a family style, like round table, but that's like a very Chinese type of thing. But I mean, this is really, really cool. I
like
like
it.
all the different types of food that are in front of them.
Mhm.
I think it's really, really cool. I dislike how they're wearing masks at the table. Fuck that. But
Rude.
Oh,
hey,
rude.
scorpions
Steve,
be doing
it's-
scorpion
Steve,
things.
it's their culture.
Yeah, I think it's bad. If I was this god who told the scorpion how to do things, I'd be like, no, you take your mask off at the table.
Take your mask off when you eat.
When you walk into someone's home, you take off your shoes and you take off your mask. That's what I would say.
Fair.
That's 100% fair. But it's past 9. It's past 9. I'm looking forward to us diving into the GM section next. We've talked a lot about, you know, how to run the game. But we haven't talked about how the game tells you to run the game. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, this is a game. How do we play?
Yeah, because we've mostly been talking about the world and stuff, but now it's like, how does one craft the world around the player's own stories? I do like the art though for the Game Master chapter art. I think it's really cool. I'm
We
assuming
talk about a lot of the art and how this art is like almost gold standard, like 2020.
yeah, that's definitely a Unicorn Clan member. Given that that's not a
That's the dude in the beginner's box.
okay, because given
Yeah.
that that's not a Japanese bow.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I like that character a lot.
What page are you looking at?
Yeah. It's
Chapter
on
7.
Chapter
if you,
7, page 281, but it's 282 on the PDF. I like it. I think it's really cool. So I'm excited for us to talk about that. But I think there are a couple things that we should definitely do in the future. One, I think all of us need to sit down and like virtually eat a meal together. Because we're always talking about food when it's dinner time for Monty and Sar.
It's true.
But I think we should, we'll order like Uber Eats or something, and we'll eat at the same time, and we'll just talk about food, Asian culture, and our meal. We'll call it dinner time or something.
That'd be fun.
And then Asians Represent will pay for it. We'll cover it and everything. But yeah, we should do that.
Asians doing fun things.
Asians doing fun things. That's our new show.
ADFT, Asians doing fun.
But that's our show, folks. We do have some things, a couple of announcements. I know, like Steve, you got a thing you're gonna be on. We're gonna be on two things. Both of us are gonna be on two things this weekend.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what have you got?
On Sunday at 12:15 PST, that's 3:15ish Eastern time, I'll be GMing a game of Jiangshi with friends who roll for their Halloween spooky extravaganza. I guess apparently my spooky thing is Oriental Adventures. That's the thing that scares me the most. So we're playing Jiangshi with the vampires, the Hoppy vampires being an allegory for really weird racist D&D tropes. So that'll be fun for everyone.
Yeah. And Steve, I'm going to be on a twitch.tv/doesitroll on Sunday, playing Rhyme of the Frost Maiden, playing as my Raven adventuring chef. That's going to be fun. But Steve, you and I are also going to be on a thing tomorrow on this very channel. Is it NS Rep? We are going to be playing Jade, Silk, and Steel, which is basically just like a reskinning of Beak, Feather, and Bone. It's a map labeling storytelling game, and we're going to be labeling the map of Chang'an. We're going to be talking about, we're going to have 4 players who are playing as the 4 dukes who oversee the administration of the empire, and I believe that Kiena will be playing the Empress, and they are all vying for power. And what happens during this game will have an impact on, our game world. So I'm super excited there. Also, if you live in the UK or want to pay for shipping from the UK, Dungeons & Dragons Annual 2021 is now available for purchase. I think we'll eventually do a giveaway of this, but Dungeons & Asians is in the book. There's Steve's character right there. Steve's name is somewhere here.
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
But I think what's super cool about this is that they decided to put a show that talks about Asian stories and Asian themes by Asian people in a book that's designed to get people into D&D, which I think is really cool. I don't have anything else to say. Any of you have other announcements, anything like that?
Next time we meet will be after the U.S. election. So
no!
Pray for us.
Pray for us.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe what we should do then is we'll have a positivity stream next Friday, and maybe we should do our eating stream next Friday. What do you folks think?
Eat our feelings?
I would suggest let's just check in closer.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll check in closer. We'll check in closer to the time.
We'll figure it out. We can't take any more people on the Discord server, right, Steve? I think
there is maybe 2 more invites left on that link, but after that,
we're looking for mods. So if you're a member of our Discord community and you want to be a mod, let us know. DM Steve, DM Steve, myself, or Pam, the admins of our Discord server, and we'll get talking. We have kind of committed to not increasing the membership of our community on Discord until we can ensure that we can moderate the community and make sure that everyone is safe. So Drew, our lovely Discord mod and Twitch mod, has actually dropped that link in there. So if you aren't a member, grab that link now, because who knows if we're going to take on new members anytime soon. That being said, thank you folks for tuning in. I know that this was a really heavy one. I've been sitting on that story about the time capsule because I figured that I feel comfortable enough talking about it on stream because I think it's important for us to be vulnerable in public. But I feel very emotionally drained. I know that this is tough for all of us, even those who are watching. So Monty, Steve, Emma, Jeremy, please take care of yourselves. Audience members, take care of yourselves. Do something to unwind. I know Steve will probably play Dota.
Yep.
Maybe later
gonna
Steve
go
will play some
watch-
League.
I'm gonna go watch the Great British Bake Off with my girlfriend. This week is
Oh.
Japan week.
Also,
I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts. on
okay. Maybe we should do food next week because this is.
And
also,
there's nobody remaining on the competition who is Asian. So we'll see what happens.
I
I
mean,
might
Does
watch some
Japan
Mandalorian.
mean for
Yeah, I was gonna
they're
say-
they're making like Japanese foods, maybe using matcha. I don't know,
Oh,
but
God.
except I don't know. I've seen a lot of criticism about this particular week.
And I
so
will
we'll
say,
see
like,
what happens. I might
low
drop
sugar
thoughts in the
desserts?
Discord afterwards.
Yeah.
if you want to watch something good, you can watch The Mandalorian season 2. Not sponsored, but Disney. If you want to sponsor Asians Represent, please. But my boy,
Jeremy, there's
my boy,
there's
Timothy
there's a
Elephant.
there's a cooking show on Netflix right now where they take 4 chefs from a professional restaurant and 4 home cooks, and they do like an elimination, like 4 on 4, 3 on 3, 2 on 2, 1
What's it
on
called?
1. I'll link it to you. But the season 1 is all Vietnamese food. So they start off like, oh, we're gonna do Vietnamese like summer rolls, like the fresh rolls and whatnot. And it's like all the home cooks do like their home cooked stuff versus the established Vietnamese restaurant. And the Vietnamese restaurant is run by a white guy with 3 Asian sous chefs, and all the contestants are 4 Asian people. One of them is Asian queer and is very vocal about it,
Oh.
and it is very tense. If you're like, who's
I can
gonna win
imagine.
this? Who's gonna win this? And I'm not gonna spoil it for you because
Are the judges? Are there Asian judges?
all 3 judges are Asian.
Okay, good.
So they consume the food and they eat it. They're blind eating it, and they're like, who is making the most authentic, delicious Vietnamese food, even though they don't identify as Vietnamese. And I'm like,
Dang.
that's tense.
I
And,
watched
like,
Just drop over the link. I'd be interested in looking at that.
I
I
watched a
have,
really
I have to look it up for you because like Netflix obviously is not promoting this kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
No. I watched this really cool video. I think it was on the Munchies channel. They had Chef Morimoto on, and he did a whole talk about preparing sashimi and sushi. But he was talking about the different color of the tuna and where the different color is in relation to the outer fat of the fish. Is really fascinating. Anyways, there's a lot of cool food stuff out there, but we're talking
Yeah.
about Asian food. And one thing you should do is support your local Asian restaurant. Please
And
go do that.
grocers.
And grocers.
And remember, dwarves eat bibimbap from now on.
Dwarves eat
And
bibimbap.
hot pot.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
Oh, we got to make it. That's a shirt. Get like a dwarven bibimbap.
that'd be awesome. Dwarven hot pot. Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll figure this out. Rebranding is happening right now. But yeah, take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Or actually, tomorrow. Come tomorrow.